Hi there, welcome to the Lovefly Fear of Flying Q&A. Greetings. My name is Paul Tizzard. I am one of the behind the scenes people looking after you at Lovefly. So welcome. This is a weekly thing and it happens most weeks, apart from last week. The less said about that, the better. But anyway, this week we've got a few questions, so thank you for those. Before I get into those, I just want to say a huge welcome to all the new members. We are averaging about 100 or so a week now, which is just amazing. So thank you so much for recommending whoever's doing that. We've seen lots of people come through now, so it's just phenomenal. So thank you. So we're up to 4.8 thousand now. So we're going to get to 5,000 before you know it, which is just mind blowing to think that it didn't start that long ago. And now we've got all these lovely humans that we're helping. So there's a bunch of stuff in here. So for those who are new to this format, you get to ask questions. So every week we post up a little thread on the Monday normally and just say, if you've got any questions, we'll come on and do our best to answer them. So there's a few cracking ones today, actually. So that'll be interesting to see what nonsense I come up with. Wisdom or nonsense, whichever. So what else I want to say? Yeah, so this happens every week. There's other resources as well if you haven't found them. The Lovefly podcast, so you can find those in all the normal places that you get podcasts. And there's also, aside from this group, you've got Instagram, there's at Lovefly Help, and you've got the YouTube channel, which is Lovefly Team. And there's a bunch of other social media things. And if you want to find out more about some of the courses that we run, for example, we've got a full course coming up at Manchester in April, which we're delighted to say is full up now. Brilliant. That's the 13th of April. We will release another date for later in the year, and we're hoping to have other locations too, but it's about the facilities, making sure we've got decent facilities that we can use, that, you know, aircraft mock-ups and things. So we've got the proper environment, not just a hotel room somewhere. So that's causing us a little bit of a challenge at the moment, but we will overcome that. I don't know if you can hear that. That's our dog licking water at the very point where I come on to do this. No respect whatsoever. And yeah, so if you want to find out about things we do, we also have this 30-day program, which is super popular, and it runs for 30 days. We've always got at least 20 to 30 humans at any one point going through it. So it's great to think that when you're doing it, even though you might feel like you're on your own, there's always other people going through the program at a similar time to you. And the other resource that we've got on the Lovefly website, if you go onto lovefly.co.uk and then just click on courses, is the instant download of the webinar, which was one that recorded a little while ago. It's a mishmash of a few of them actually, and that's picked up in interest as well. So that's enough of that stuff. Let's get to the questions. And then I'll tell you also about the podcasts that are coming up this week. So there are a couple of questions here that I think there's one that I've never been asked before. There's one that I have been asked, which I'm pleased to say. Okay, I'll go with the easy one first. So Jessica said, can you open the emergency exit mid-flight? So the straight answer is no, you can't. It's pressurized, and when it's not pressurized, you've always got cabin crew there, and so you could argue that if you were to go and open it when it's not pressurized, it wouldn't matter too much anyway, apart from the fact you'd fall out. You opening the door, no one else. So we always say to people, keep your seatbelts on during the flight, and you know, no harm will come to you in terms of turbulence and stuff. But a lot of people worry about idiots running up and trying to open the door, which is why when it can be opened, like on the ground and just after takeoff, there's always cabin crew there. And during the flight, it's pressured, the aircraft is pressured, so you couldn't open it no matter how. If you got 15 people on there, the handle would break, you wouldn't get the door open. So the pressure is just immense, because what you've got is this ridiculously strong tube which is packed full of more air inside than outside. So it's pushing against the doors, and the doors are like plug type doors. So they've got these massive bolts that go in, and they're actually slightly bigger than the hole. So they kind of go in, they sort of swivel and then come in, and it's a remarkable thing. And for those on the Manchester course, you'll be able to see those sort of doors because we've got loads of them around so you can have a look at. So yeah, it's not a problem. There was something in the media a few months ago about, and it was just nonsense. It was this flight says, a passenger opens door mid-flight, and it's absolute nonsense because it was coming into land. And yes, they shouldn't have been able to get to the door, but I guess whatever happened on that airline, it would have been investigated. But the aircraft wasn't pressurized, so the door was able to be opened. So they did try and crack open the door a little bit, and then they would have been jumped on by the cabin crew, as you can imagine. So how they even got to the door, we don't know, because there's always somebody by the doors. But I guess, I can't think of the last time this ever happened. So we have to sort of think about these things as how rare these things are, and still nothing happened to anybody. It just made the news, like anything with commercial aviation does. So I'm going to say on that. So Ma says, climate change, can it make flying more unsafe? Because she read a book about what happens if the Gulf Stream collapses and what would happen to aircraft. Well, this is completely out of my area, and unfortunately, I wish I'd had this question about 3 or 4 weeks ago, because we, on the podcast, one of the ones that's coming up, we interviewed a meteorologist that works at the what's it called? It'll come back to me. Anyway, she works at the meteorology centre over in. I nearly had it then. It's gone. Anyway, somewhere sort of like North America way. We spoke to her, and I was asking a whole bunch of questions about meteorology and turbulence and forecasting and all that sort of stuff. So we'll let you know when that comes up. And I would have asked her exactly that question. So as I don't know the answer to this, I'm not going to make up some old nonsense. What I will say is that the main thing about commercial aviation you've got to think is, well, why would we risk it? So if there was anything weird that happened to the climate, we would be monitoring. We're always monitoring it. Well, I'm not, but other people are monitoring this. That's their job. There's an aviation weather center. There we go. Monitoring these things all the time. There's a whole bunch of these super smart people monitoring different elements of weather so they can predict for flight planning. So there's people on this all the time, so you don't need to worry about it. It's not your job, as we say. All right, hope that helps. Okay, so Marcella says, was it Marcella? I'm not quite sure where you're from, but it could be one of those two, or it could be Marcella. We don't know. Says, if the engine explodes, what would happen with the damage to it? It says in the rare, so it's a lovely positive post. Thank you for that. So did you know that when they test the engines, they make them so that something happens inside? So there's like a mini explosion, and they test them that the aircraft cowling has to contain whatever happens within it. So I'm trying to think of what would make it explode, but I can't, but if it did, that's the way they've been designed and tested. So I can't say much more than that, because any other scenario beyond that would be a one-off that's never happened. So we'll have to just think about what is tested and what do we know about the aircraft engine. And so it's very easy for our brains to think about these things, but actually there's so much testing and so much capacity, what we call redundancy in commercial aviation in place, that I can't see why that would happen. But I'm hoping that will answer you. And the other one, which is, so it just shows how great your imagination is, which is fantastic, but this is a question that people worry about. So it says, if pilots take a break, okay, how dare they? So you must be talking about a 2-pilot operation, because obviously over 9 hours you have 3 or 4 pilots, so they'll be switching around and they have their crew rest bunks to go and sleep in. But if on a 2-pilot operation, you've asked, like, so the flight attendant goes in, but it's pretty easy. It would be pretty easy for a determined pilot to overpower them. Could the other pilot get back in? Now, this is a really tricky one to answer, because there's lots of safety protocols going on here since September the 11th. So you can't actually get back in. And there may be other things, but I'm not going to tell you that, because for one, my knowledge might be out of date in terms of the security procedures, and airlines all differ slightly. They all have to meet an international standard in terms of the way the doors work, and that they person inside the flight deck has to let the other person in. There's a video and all the rest. There's a codes, and there's lots of stuff like that that I don't know enough about. And if I did know, I wouldn't tell you anyway, because I don't think it's my place to do that. But what I'll say is that all these scenarios, there's been a risk assessment. So if you think before September the 11th, there wasn't a door, there was a curtain. And we had, what was it, 40, 50 years of people flying around, doing flight deck visits, walking in and out, and we didn't think very much of that at all. And now we've got this Kevlar door, which is locked with the cameras on the outside, and we can't get in and everything. Makes us think about it differently. So this seems like, the norm now, so we should be able to get in. But then the other thing is, some people are often worried because of the German, was it German Wings? I can't remember the name of the airline now, that where the pilot took it, crashed the aircraft. That's as far as we know. That there have been changes to procedures as a result of that. And, ultimately you have to look at the risk assessment of like these people that go and become pilots. Do we trust them? So the fundamental question, I do trust them. And it's not something I've ever thought about. And I would suggest or offer you to say, it's very easy to get ourselves into this scenario and start thinking about it. But when you think there's somebody like the one where the pilot did do exactly what you've just said. I mean, when was the last time that happened? So it's a one-off. It's terrible. The passengers would have known very little about it. So it's easy to dwell on these things, but I would try to offer you to say, try and think of all the times that this doesn't happen. And is it 100% guaranteed that nothing like this could ever happen again? No, because there's no such thing as 100% guarantees. But the thing about commercial aviation, you've got to think about this whole professional body of pilots, their training, what they have to go to get to that stage, how much it costs, how long it costs, and how many checks are in place in terms of the physical and the mental stuff. That there's a lot of things in place now. And there's also, we had that Billy Hoffman, the pilot who is researching pilot mental health. So he came on our podcast a couple of months ago talking about this very thing. So I would suggest you listen to it. So search for Dr. Billy Hoffman in our podcast and have a listen to that, because he talks about pilot mental health in light of some of the things that you've just said. So I hope that helps you. And I just think it's not something that is worth dwelling on, because it's so exceptionally rare, and there's so many things that have been thought about and put in place, stuff that we know about, lots of stuff we don't know about. So this week's podcast is so on Wednesday. So we've got a bit of an interesting bonus this week. So this Wednesday, Erica Rachel, who is member 4000, and she's coming on to talk about her story and also what it's like flying she's visually impaired, and what that means for her in terms of fear of flying. Because you know what happens sometimes, they say that one of the things I asked her about was that I've heard this sort of like thing that if one of your senses goes, that the others become more powerful. And she said, no, that's not true. Actually, what happens is you just have only got those left. So you just pay a bit more attention to them. So it's not like she said, it's not like my hearing's improved. She said, because I was spoiled by having all the senses available, you tend to just not notice it. So you just pay more attention to what you've got left. And I thought that was really interesting. And she talks about experience, how she's overcoming her fear of flying, but also the fact we invited her on because she was member 4000 in the Lovefly Facebook group. So woohoo, we might have to have member 5000 when they come through. The bonus. So on Sunday, we're going to do a podcast special, which is Captain Emma and Brian Morris from the Facebook group, the Lovefly Facebook group. Now, Brian has been on podcast to share his story about how he's overcome his fear of flying through different things, such as the 30-day program and a few other ways. And also Captain Emma has been on a few times. She's the one that used to work with on EasyJet's Sphere of Flying course, but she also was on that TV program on ITV, which was In the Cockpit or something. I think it was called something like that anyway. And so people search Captain Emma and sort of follow her. So she's fantastic. She's done at least two or three of the podcast episodes. But they've got a product coming out, which they're going to talk to you about, which was inspired by Brian himself. And Brian and Emma have worked on it to bring it out. And so we're not on commission. It's nothing to do with us. But we just thought because they're so great, we're going to give them a little bit of a plug. So on Sunday, that podcast will also be out as well. We did the interview this week. So it's been released this week, this product. So we were hoping that you'll be interested in it because it's a great little idea. So look out for that. So that's it for now. Just want to say thanks ever so much for watching. I can't see who's viewing today. Sometimes I can. So I'll say hello to Pete and John because I know you're always watching. And I'll say hello to Geeta. You watch it later. I know that for guaranteed, but I don't know. Apart from that, I don't know who else will be watching. Let's see if I can get it up on my phone, actually. See if there's any last minute questions. Don't know why I did that funny noise. Oh, yeah. So, Chris, thanks for watching. And Chris is joining us on the Manchester course as well. So, Mez is watching as well. Geeta, you're already there as well. Gordon Swift, hello. So, quite a few people watching today, which is nice. So, thank you very much for that. Pete's always watching, Pete Higgins. So if you haven't done it, please check out his flight checklist, which is available in the Facebook group, the Lovefly Facebook group, and it's in the file section. So the flight checklist is just a great little gift that he has given to Lovefly. And it's just brilliant. So many people rave about it. So many people have downloaded it and used it. So I do recommend that you do that if you haven't come across it yet. And Pete's actually joining us on the Manchester course, and so is Jamie from the Lovefly Facebook group. He's going to come along as a volunteer to help out as a ex-fearful flyer. So it's going to be a great team up there. So we've got Captain Steve, we've got Sarah, we've got Susan, our clinical director, we've got John Bond, who's often in this group as well doing stuff. He's our ops guy. We've got me, we've got Pete. Is that it? Jamie. That's it, isn't it? That's everyone. So anyway, those are going to come into it. We'll see you there. And I'm going to sign off now before I stop waffling anymore. And I wish you all a great rest of week. And I shall see you in the podcast. Ciao for now.